You wanna come back when the wiki tiki calls. You wanna come back to the island waterfalls. You wanna come back when the island calls. Aloha Scooby-Doo.
You want to know what one of the worst things about being trapped in a dimension where anything anyone can imagine is real? Living memes. Giant enemy crabs are a bitch to deal with. So, we're still firmly in the What's New Scooby-Doo era, and as such, there's not a lot to say about the production of the next film, so I'm just going to give you the basics and we'll get on with it. Aloha Scooby-Doo is released on February 8th, 2005 with a script by Temple Matthews and directed by Tim Maltby. The film opens in Hawaii, where we see the... Oh, God. No. No. I refuse to say it out loud. It's right there. You can read it for yourselves. Anyway, we see assorted locals and tourists surfing near the beach, and we meet Manu Tuiyama, voiced by Mario Lopez, and his girlfriend Snooki, voiced by Tia Carrera. An obnoxious tourist gets uppity, so Manu puts him in his place and heads for shore to meet up with Snooki and his friend Little Jim.
What's up with all these mainlanders anyway? The big kahuna of Hanahuna contest is supposed to be a local thing, man.
Little Jim thinks that allowing mainlanders to enter the contest will anger the island spirits. Manu blows off those concerns, and the obnoxious tourist shows up to taunt him, and he walks off, clearly annoyed. Said obnoxious tourist and his entourage get an unpleasant surprise when the volcano begins to erupt, prompting the arrival of this movie's monster, and, uncommonly enough for Scooby-Doo, his minions. This is... oh god. The Wiki Tiki, the dumbest named monster in Scooby-Doo history. And once again, I refuse to keep saying it throughout this review. I will instead be calling it The Monster, because seriously, that's just a really bad name. Anyway, the minions attack everyone at the beach, causing chaos and terror, like you do, before abducting Snooki. Little Jim tries to rescue her, but fails. And Manu returns from wherever he went to find the beach destroyed and his girlfriend missing. We then dissolve to a cliff where Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby are hang gliding.
Of course! I read the instructions. Well, part of them anyway. Now, there's nothing to it.
The gang are in Hawaii because Daphne's been hired by the Goha Aloha company to design a new clothing line for them and set them up with this all-expense-paid trip. While the boys are hang gliding, Daphne and Velma are getting photos of the local wildlife for silk screening purposes. And in a first for these movies, the Mystery Machine hasn't been shipped along for the trip, although the gang have somehow managed to get a rental car with a very familiar paint job. The boys land, sort of, and the gang find themselves watching a convoy of people leaving Hanahua in a hurry.
Well, if you're heading for Hanahuna, you'd better hurry. The place is being overrun by evil tiki spirits. I'm so out of here!
But since Hanahua is where Daphne's supposed to meet Jared Moon, the Goha Aloha rep, the gang head into town anyway. The locals seem to be spooked but won't say why, so they go to talk to Jared Moon, voiced by the late Adam West, who is apparently taking advantage of the situation.
Don't wind up as a human sacrifice. Get your wiki-tiki charms now.
Moon says the charms are a side hustle he's doing and that he's getting out of town as soon as he's sold them all. When pressed for more information, he gives us some backstory on the monster.
He's said to be 10,000 years old, give or take a day, and he must be appeased with a human sacrifice.
You know what, I really like Adam West's performance here. While it's obviously him, he's clearly not phoning it in, trying to characterize Moon as this odd but effective combination of beach bum, street hustler, and Paul Lynde. It's a really good performance, and I enjoy it quite a bit. Manu and Little Jim show up and inform the gang about Snooki's kidnapping, followed closely by the mayor of Hanahuna, Molly Quinn, voiced by Terry Garr, who isn't so hot on the talk of what's been going on in the town.
Why, you're more likely to get struck by lightning than become some silly sacrifice.
Manu and Little Jim stalk off after letting the mayor have it and basically blaming her for Snooki's kidnapping, since she opened up the surfing contest to anyone, not just the locals. Scooby and Shaggy are all for taking off as well, but the promise of free food at a celebration being thrown by the local realtors gets them to stick around. Said local realtor is Ruben La Luna, voiced by Tom Kenny, who Little Jim also blames for arousing the wrath of the monster, especially since he's planning a new condo development in town.
Folks, you don't get that back in Kansas.
Along with the volcano, the minions show up again and begin tearing the place apart. They also try to abduct Daphne, but she manages to escape and send them scurrying back into the jungle. Daphne finds a necklace that Manu confirms belongs to Snooki. He also gives us more information on the minions.
Those are called Hahona Lohavas. They are spirits that serve their master.
Why do the minions have a name that sounds more authentic than the name of the monster? Anyway, the gang try to figure out a way to find the monster, and hopefully Snooki, and Fred has an idea.
I figured the best way is for me to join the surfing contest.
But Fred, you don't surf.
Fortunately, the gang does have someone who can surf with them.
Good thing I got a power pedicure for this practice run.
So, while Daphne surfs, the rest of the gang keep an eye out for the monster. Shaggy and Scooby get frightened by a wild pig out into the bay and decide to do some surfing themselves, which turns out to be a bad idea.
It's the wiki-tiki.
Cue the chase! Although admittedly, this is a much more creative chase since it's on water, backed by some pretty sweet surf guitar by the man himself, Dick Dale. Daphne manages to get a pretty good whack on the monster, and Velma gets some pictures just before Shaggy and Scooby manage to cause it to wipe out. But when the gang zoom into the bay, surprise, surprise, the monster has vanished. Returning to the hotel, they find a message waiting for them.
Begoni. Huh. Must be some kind of weird Hawaiian word. I wonder what it means.
The mayor shows up trying to put a happy face on everything, then admits things are going right down the toilet.
Would you stop saying wiki-tiki? Wiki-tiki this and wiki-tiki that. It's driving me crazy!
Oh great, now this movie's becoming self-aware. Manu and Little Jim show up again and suggest the gang talk to Auntie Mahina, a medicine woman who lives on the rainy side of the island. The next day, he takes the gang to see her. On the way, Velma starts to theorize about who benefits from the monster attacking the surfing contest.
Well, that Jared Moon guy sure is making a killing selling those charms.
What about that realtor, Ruben La Luna? If he really has his sights set on acquiring property, what better way than to scare the daylights out of people so they sell?
Leaving the road, the gang start making their way through the jungle. Manu hears a noise and says it's the monster. The gang start running, but Manu decides to head off on his own to confront the monster and find Snooki. The gang, of course, follow, only to find a lot of destruction and Manu gone missing. With no other options, the gang decide to go find Auntie Mahina, who Manu said was north of where they are, which allows Daphne to show off some of her survival skills.
No, silly. I'm seeing which way it blows. That way I can tell which way the wind is coming from. And since the prevailing winds are from the north on this island, that means north is that way.
Of course, we're in a jungle, so also, of course, there's a ravine with a rope bridge. And surprisingly, we get the return of danger-prone Daphne.
Done.
Complete with extremely unlikely to work in real-life solution.
That's fucking bullshit!
The gang find Auntie Mahina, who tells them that the monster is angry because the champion of the surfing contest must be of Hawaiian blood and that it most likely plans on sacrificing Manu and Snooki to the volcano as appeasement. The gang decide to put a stop to it and plan to head for the volcano. Auntie Mahina tells them to go through the mountain and find the monster's lair. However, it appears something is amiss.
Can you tell us how to get out of here?
Sure. Just take the main road, right over there.
The gang return to town where everybody, tourists and locals alike, seem to be departing at a rapid rate. The mayor tries to calm those remaining, stating the surfing contest will go on the next day, but Little Jim causes more panic when the gang tell him Manu has been kidnapped.
You are responsible for Manu and Snooki, and whatever happens tomorrow will be your fault too.
Well aware they're running out of time, the gang head for the lagoon where the monster disappeared earlier. The gang expect, and do find, a cave behind the waterfall, but nothing's there. Until danger-prone Daphne does it again. As the gang head into the tunnel, they find Gilligan. Ooh, guess they never did make it off that island. Anyway, the cave is full of bats, which predictably Scooby spooks and sends them flying in panic. After the bat attack, Fred and Daphne ask a question, which has probably been on your mind as well.
If the Wiki-Tiki spirit is angry at the mainlanders, why not kidnap one of them to sacrifice?
This cave exploration sequence, from the time they find the entrance until they finally find a staircase carved into the rock, lasts nearly 7 minutes with no plot, character development, or even a halfway decent gag. Proving once again that for this era of Scooby movies, there is a lot of padding out the runtime going on. The gang hear noises coming from both ends of the staircase and are soon surrounded by the monster's minions. Fortunately, Scooby finds another tunnel they can escape through. They manage to ditch the minions and eventually find an altar deep in the heart of the volcano. They also find Snooky, who does not have the reaction you'd expect.
Snooky!
But before they can follow her, the monster shows up. Fred has a plan, and after the usual negotiations, Shaggy and Scooby head out to do what is, once again, the most terrifying thing in this movie.
On this moonlit night, we'll be smooching and cooching in Hawaii.
Right there with you, pal. Fred, Velma, and Daphne start a rock slide, which sends the monster over a cliff, but some of the damage it did trying to get at Shaggy and Scooby winds up causing the statues around the altar to topple, which allows the monster to escape a painful lava-filled death. As the gang run, they find Snooky, who leads them into the next chase. Thanks to Daphne and Scooby, the monster trips and collides with a cavern wall, which starts a cave in. They escape the monster, and Snooky leads them further into the volcano, but the monster shows up and abducts her. Again. And to make things worse, the chamber the gang are trapped in is filled with snakes. And then something weird happens.
But there's no possible way to get past that swarm of slithery serpents.
Really, movie? You spend 7 minutes doing almost nothing while the gang enters the volcano and have the snake solution happen in less than 3 seconds? And you know what? This whole volcano exploration bit is going on way too long, so let's just jump ahead to when something relevant happens. The gang find a chamber full of the monster's minions, but it also contains a ton of equipment used to manufacture robots, which is, of course, what the minions are. They also find a console with a rather interesting use.
I wonder what this does.
And Velma makes another discovery indicating the monster may not be as old as everyone thinks.
Why would a 10,000-year-old spirit be riding a Aloha surfboard?
So the gang find a way out of the volcano and make ready to catch the monster at the surfing contest.
And welcome everyone to the 4th annual Big Kahuna of Hanahuna Surfing Contest.
Wait, 4th annual? This has only been going on for 4 years, and Manu and Little Jim have been claiming the monster is angry about a contest that's only 4 years old? No, forget it. Let's get on with this. The contest gets underway, the volcano erupts, quote-unquote. The monster shows up and the gang enact the plan. The plan, of course, fails, but the monster winds up wiping out and getting washed up on the beach, and if you've been paying attention, you probably already know who it is.
Who's the best surfer around these parts?
Manu?
So yeah, it's another real estate scam, except it was Manu and Snooky buying up all the property people were selling in town. However, this does require an ass pull on Velma's part.
I checked the county registrar online, and all the properties sold recently were bought by Pamela Wa'iwa, a.k.a. Snooky.
When? When did you do this, Velma? Aside from right at the beginning when you were uploading photos, you haven't used a computer once during this whole movie. And how the hell much did setting up the robots, the fake volcano, the monster suit, and everything else involved in this scam cost? Was the land really worth that much? These questions are rhetorical, of course, because this is Scooby-Doo, and Scooby-Doo is nothing if not ignoring petty little details like that. So, Manu and Snooky are arrested, and just to add insult to injury,
As mayor of this fine town, I am proud to announce that this year's trophy for the Big Kahuna of Hanahuna Surfing Contest goes to Scooby-Doo.
Who? Me?
And so, things cap off with a luau where the gang collect the gratitude from everyone, Daphne's designs are bought by Goha Aloha, and the minions show up again. Wait, what?
Huh?
Aloha Scooby-Doo starts off strong but trips at the finish line. For the most part, it's decently paced, the monster's well designed, the mystery is interesting, but from the second the gang enter the volcano, the pacing turns erratic, the scheme implausible, and the reveal unsatisfactory. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it needs some work. Otherwise, the cast is pretty good, the animation is excellent, except again for the obvious 3D animation not meshing with the 2D plane. Overall, this is better than Monster of Mexico, but plot-wise, I would say Loch Ness Monster edges this one out. It's worth a watch, but be ready for the problems near the end. And so, it's time to wipe out another of the 30-plus films of Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo! Aloha!
Those meddling kids to join the chase. No creep can keep them away. Don't try to stop them. When monsters all disappear without a trace, the kids find the clues right away. The villains never learn that crime doesn't